or a costly adjustment. Hi, Steve.
Hi, how are you getting on? You look like you've made some good progress.
Yeah, sure. We had run up towards the end. Maybe you could do a quick run through, otherwise I've taken the team through.
Sure.
Yeah. I could stop sharing and you can share from your end.
Okay.
Okay, please. Maybe, do we have any questions so that Steve can incorporate those in the presentation?
I don't know whether
Over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Gerald. Thank you very much for stepping in there. I'll chat about the meeting in a few minutes. So maybe wait till see if Stella can return. So there's that wonderful spider diagram of Chris Evans's that you were looking at there, Gerald. And I like the fact that it feeds back on itself, and it tells us that the design process doesn't end because we're always evaluating and then going on and making changes. I created a breakdown of that. So there's a little PDF on the webpage that you can look at, which takes us through so it begins with observation. And we're going to observe the client, the site, and then what information can we find around, and what are the leaks? Where's the energy running out of the site? And that might be the places where we can make the most impact most quickly. So we're going to do a survey of the client. Now that might be you. And sometimes it's difficult to design for yourself. So I always sort of say it's kind of like an interesting role play. There's the designer is with one hat, and then the client with the other hat. Now that might both be you, but you still want to go through this in a conscious, informed process. I want to see people have these dialogues. So what are the functions? Why are we doing this? What do we hope to achieve? What's our goal? What's the outcome of our design? And let's be specific about it, because if we can name it and be clear about what we're aiming to achieve, we can keep coming back and ask ourselves that key question. Are we meeting our goals? Are we fulfilling the function of the design? Now, of course, people are complicated. People have values, ethics, priorities, tastes, all sorts of different things. What are yours, or what are the person that you're working with, or the client group? Understand so that your design ideas and your design process is relevant and to the intended group. And what's your budget? What resources do you have? If you can see what's lying around, if you can build a design within available resources, then you can start immediately. If you start with some crazy ambitious plan and it's going to be great, but you need $50,000, then okay, you're going to be sat waiting for the $50,000. Let's try and come up with something that we can do now. We can begin. It doesn't cost any money to make compost. It doesn't cost any money, to start catching and storing energy and so forth. And what are the constraints? Okay, I'm sure you've gone through all of this, Gerald. So in that diagram, but again, I laid it out in another way, and I want to be able to make sure that we think of each one of these things, and also these lists aren't exhaustive. So you might, I'm sure there's things that we've left out. I always like to tell this story though. So be clear of the borders and boundaries of the site you're designing. And I always like to tell this story. When I was a kid, when I was a youth, me and a friend, we were working on a local farm, and the farmer gave us these big shears, big cutters, and they said, "Oh, that top field, we're going to harvest it tomorrow. Any big tall weeds that's sticking out, can you cut the tops off with the things?" And we spent all day doing it. And at the end of the day, we're walking down the field, and the farmer's leaning on the gate. And he said, "Have you done all right? We've done a good job." He said, "Well, you've done a good job, but there's just one problem. It's not my field. We kind of worked in the wrong field." So it's my funny story. But So you need to be clear about the space that you're designing. And I think these aren't necessarily in order, but water's always the ultimate limiting factor in a design. If you haven't got any, you can't do anything. And if you have too much, it's really destructive. It's really, so when we're doing a survey, we're interrogating the site. We need to extract that information. And remember, you might know the answer to some of those questions, but what if the other people on your project, on your team, don't know the answer to those questions? So, let's think about some ways in which we can communicate these ideas clearly. We're going to also survey observed experiences. What's the history of the site? What do the people next door, what do they remember? Is other local knowledge? Perhaps design work's been done already. And then understanding, looking at our survey of our land is the soil erosion? Well, what happens to the water? Are we catching and storing energy? And if we're not, what are the leaks? What are the costs that we're incurring that we could avoid? What could we do to stop them? And your design is going to address whatever design it is that you do. It's got to speak to the survey part of this process. So that's the key thing, and that was the thing I wanted to stress today. And if we have the opportunity, we write down or represent in a picture or a model or anything what we have surveyed, and we test out those ideas by giving our feedback to the client group and check that we're getting it right. The more we discuss things, so here's a permaculture rule. They like to say, make your mistakes on paper. Make your mistakes in the planning and evaluation stage, not on the land itself. We don't want to be wasting energy, time, resources, putting things in the wrong place, not knowing where the boundary is, building something that then washed away in a flood. We need to bring all of this information together before we start designing. The analysis part is really focusing on the functions of your design. And that might be obvious to you. Well, we just want to grow some crops. Yeah, but what crops and why? And let's think about, maybe it's more, let's think about the impact that might have on wildlife or on your neighbors, or, how it might fit in with your other goals. Okay, so I made this today, this slideshow. So you can use this as a checklist to think about. We're going through our SADIMET, which is survey, which ends in the first base map, and then analysis, which is asking the questions, which creates the second base map, and then we begin to think about the design process. And we only think about the design process, like what are we going to have and where are we going to put it and all of this kind of details. We don't think about that until we've thought about the survey and the analysis. That's the big lesson. Don't rush in and start doing things before you've done the thinking. And I think that's the lesson we want to take from this. And I'll jump out of that, and it's there on the website as a resource. And should we offer a break, Gerald? Should we just have a short break, perhaps until? What do you think?
Yes, we could have maybe for 8 minutes. That's up to.
Come back at 10
50.
to.
Yes, 10 to.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. And I'll pick up on the other half of what I was talking about before. Oh, let me just say one thing though, Gerald, as well. So we just had the work that we've been doing. We've had a bit of funding from a private trust in the UK called Arkleton Trust, and that project's now finished. And we had to make a formal report back to them about what we've achieved. So we've just been talking about that, and they are delighted. They really love our report. They love our feedback. all the stories they've heard about Tapa, about Yupo, about Africa, about Rwandan women. They're really super impressed, and they've really sent a warm thank you and recognition to us. So we need to translate that into more funding and more. But we just presented to a team of people who've made some notes, and they're very, very impressed with the impact that we've had, the changes that we've actually made to real people. So well done, everyone. So that was
thank you. And I can see Stella is also back. Thank you for representing, and well done, everyone. Well done, Deborah. Well done, Simon, Caroline. So it's about a team and all of us. Yeah, thanks, everyone. You don't need to necessarily log out. We're going to be back in about 5 minutes, just taking a short break, grab a cup of tea, and then we go for the last session, last part of the session. All right, see you in 5 minutes.
See you.
Okay, thanks everyone. Slightly early, actually. Give another minute. You don't need to hear me slurping my tea.
Okay, I think we're back now. Is everyone back? Let me just get a thumbs up, a virtual thumbs up as Steve gets ready. Any questions? Any comments? Yeah, Steve is ready. Yes.
Thanks. I hope. Thank you, Gerald, for filling in there. And I realised, of course, when I left the meeting, I stopped recording it, but you will be recorded on the YouTube stream. So anyway, still learning how to juggle this. Yeah, I'm going to. I just got to the halfway point of my story. I'm just seeing your question as well, Caroline. Let me just think about that as well. So the key thing about how we might use land or anything is we're interested in what's the function of your design, and I'm going to challenge you to write them down. So yeah, grow food or whatever it is, but we've also got to build soil. We've got to think about the impact on the nature and wildlife. I think there's going to be many considerations to that, and that how we might approach land use would be, well, is the land too wet, or is it too dry? Is it how do we modify it to suit the intended function that we have? So anyway, good question, and keep asking them. And if I haven't answered it, ask it again, because that's how we get to the nub of it. Okay, so you should better see my community garden slide of a little apple tree. And what I'd said was, I'd run my community garden, a project for 2 years at a location on an industrial estate. And it actually wasn't a very welcoming place. It was a bit smelly and a bit noisy, and it wasn't close to housing. Whereas the new site that we were offered there's housing units here, and there's obviously a busy college of students there. That big sawmill I mentioned, that's on the other side of this road here, and on that side is the railway. So we actually thought with our design is the elements that we place on this land, that green triangle, are going to fulfill a range of different functions, because we want to grow food, we want to support wildlife and biodiversity, we want to do things in an interesting way that we can learn and other people can learn, and we've got things to teach about. What we do needs to also meet the needs of the college. As a neighbour, what could we do that would help build a relationship with them? Well, some of their pupils needed certain types of activities, could we construct opportunities for people from this side? We understood that this was a social housing project this side, and that some of the people living on that side, our other neighbours, also had social needs, and were there things that we could do within the garden that would help engage and build a relationship with them? We could think about what did the railway going past, what did that mean, if anything? There's a big road here, again, is that important? And on the other side of the road, there's the sawmill that has lots of timber. So those were our there's some initial thoughts of our site survey, and taking an overview look of the opportunity that we had. See, there's the railway embankment, there's the main field. And as I was saying before, so the first thing we realized, our real resource was the people, not the land, it's the people. We can solve all the land-based problems if we have, a workforce. We have people who not a workforce, people who could see what their relationship to that land could be, how they might benefit from it, how they might take part in it. And we invited those people to share their ideas with us. We ran a little course, and on that course, we started to just brainstorm, to think out, well, the roundhouse, we like that. Let's bring that with us. Where will we put it? And we put sticky notes on the map of the land, and we thought, well, if we put that there, we could put that there. And, but what about if we try that? Make your mistakes on paper. Allow yourself free range to explore your ideas. Try out something slightly crazy. What happens if we put this over there? And if it doesn't work, put it back again. So I think we had about 8 or 9 people for a week, and we talked about permaculture design. We talked about community gardens, and we walked around the site. We observed, and we started to think, well, what would be the route in? What would be the pathway? What would be the access for people, access for vehicles? Could we make them separate because we don't want people and vehicles to, come into contact? How's nature, how are birds or other wildlife going across our site? Or what will the neighbors think when they see us? We tried to think about all of those things. We thought, well, this the garden in front of the house could perhaps be like a formal garden, a laid out garden, a nice space for children to play where they could be observed by their parents. We're going to need productive areas for growing. We're going to need other areas, for other functions. So I'm going to teach you in the second half of the course, beginning next week, we're going to talk about, we design from the patterns to the detail. So we see the wider picture, and then we then start to ask ourselves the questions, layer on layer of placing then the detail within that space. And what I've learned is there are certain the key elements in any design. There's only going to be 1 or 2 places where you can put them. So get them in the right place first. The access road, the river, the slope, where the key building is if you have a building. Those are things that are only going to have so many opportunities of where to put them. So identify where they're going to be, put them on your map. And if you get it wrong, you can always move it around. But then we start to identify what are the most important things, elements of our design, and can we make sure that we put them in the right place that will be influenced by roadways, by slope, by rivers, by soil quality, and tangible, measurable things. And then once we've got those key things in, I blocked this out because that's where cars are, so I thought about that's potentially dangerous. I realized that there was a people reception area in the middle. We're going to have formal laid out gardens on the front here, looking interesting shapes, and then also have between the center of the hub and where the college is, we'll put in our training and demonstration areas, and think about where's the right place to put things. And then over in this side of the garden was where, again, we had another set of ideas to create our forest garden area and so forth, without getting into the details of the project too much. But and then we drew a picture, we printed the picture, and we invited everyone who came to the launch meeting to come back, and here's some local, men in suits, important people, the town mayor, councillor, whatever, chief executive of our organization, who had them plant a tree. So we told very clearly to the college, to the owners of the land, this is our plan. Here it is. Here's a picture of it. And this is why we're doing it. It's because we want to create opportunities for community, for the school, for the neighbors, for wildlife. That's why it's going to look like that. So if you lay out your plan like that in a very clear way, people can ask questions, they can become comfortable with what you're doing, and say, I took a photo of them all and I put it in the local paper so I'd make sure they couldn't go back and change their minds. I felt like, we now had permission to go ahead with our project. And there's our little story, get growing, plan takes root. Nice kind of pun that they put in newspapers. So there we go. We're off we go with our new project. And the college, because they liked our ideas, fitted out the little bungalow bit as a classroom, so we could have, teaching spaces. In the agricultural shed, we put storage units so we could store our vegetables and carry on our veg supply to local suppliers. We brought our nursery with us. Every plant that we'd created at the first garden, we dug it up and we brought it to the second garden. We didn't want to leave anything behind. Now, because we were in a more accessible part of town, we had youngsters come and train with us. And we had a design for the garden, so we had clear instructions of what people were to do. And we engaged them in tasks, quite laborious, hard work. But after a few days, what we found was the volunteers came to us with questions. Oh, why are we doing this? And why is it? And slowly had a chance then to incorporate them in the planning and the understanding of what we were doing. Funnily enough, this young man here, he's like 16 in this picture, and it's one of his first work experiences. About a year ago, I bumped into him in a supermarket, completely out of context. And I recognized him, and he recognized me and said, all right. And I said, all right. And we greeted each other, and that was it. But it was just like, that's an outcome for me. That person, a young person, had a positive experience, and 10 years later, he sees me in the street and he remembers. That's when we know we're doing something right. Here we're building our experimental beds. It's ecological beds, which I think I have talked about. And as we developed our little permaculture demonstration center, we realized that every interaction was a chance to make a new friend. Here's with our youth person. This is another permaculture group. This woman was working in a bank before. This is the caretaker from our local school, and there's a carpenter builder from up the road. You can see everything as an opportunity to learn. Everything is an opportunity to extend demonstrate the potential of permaculture. What you're seeing here is cool, temperate permaculture. These strategies work well in our climate. So think about how these might translate slightly to fit into other climate zones. Here we're doing formative pruning on a fruit tree, but we're not just doing the shaping of this tree, young tree. We're teaching about it, sharing that knowledge. Our micro allotment plots, this idea of allowing community members to have very small intensive gardens. Now that worked really well. So we carried that idea with us, and as this centre has developed, that's something which has grown and grown. Now, yes, these are some of we designed a raised bed system. Some people wanted to have those. We realised that this gave us technology ideas to explore with the school, and we could create different versions of integrated seats, and we all got a bit carried away. But as I said, we wanted to explore these kinds of ideas, and we're using these materials because they're for sale across the road, the sawmill. Next door to us is a college where they give teaching people practical skills. So see how we could use our permaculture training centre as a way to engage with different people, but also build the infrastructure that we wanted for our training centre. In the process of doing that, we realised that there were people in the community who really wanted to learn hard skills of woodworking and so forth, so we could provide that, tree grafting, outreach to... anyway. Okay, so these are the early days. I've got another whole set of photos of what now this garden centre, this horticulture centre looks like now. There you go. Wasn't the whole purpose of this was not for me to tell you anecdotes, but to show how design's a process, and that think about what were the functions of the design of our training centre. We wanted to create spaces for people, spaces for learning, spaces for propagating plants, for growing main crop plants. We wanted orchards, we wanted intensive areas, we wanted areas that the public could come and learn on, and we also wanted areas that the public, individual members of the public might feel, oh, this is my garden, I did that, and have that, different people wanted different experiences. Some of the people who came one guy was painfully shy, he couldn't look you in the eyes, it was like that, and but he came every week, and we found out he liked weaving things, and we designed a little gate, or he designed a little gate, sort of designed, and he'd come back every week and make one and find little places in the garden to put it. And so again, in that way of you're evolving an ecosystem, and in that ecosystem there are niches for different people, different activities, for young people, older people, not just creating a monoculture, another field of maize. Let's think about how we understand we're creating complex systems, a complex system that has within it numerous opportunities. Let me pause there. Gerald, any thoughts on that, and help with the continuity from what you were talking about when I was absent?
Not really. You've really put it out clearly. And I think this is now what I've been telling them is more of the icing to the cake. This is now the contextualization of bringing together most of the elements or the previous sessions that we had looked at earlier. Back to you, Steve.
Thank you for that, and that reassurance as well. Thank you, Gerald. That's great. Okay, so we've got 20 minutes. So we'll all have to work together on this and help each other, and some people are missing bits, but in the second half of the course, I want us to begin now to focus these ideas and the processes. There's lots more to share, there's lots more to go, but the question is, how are you going to use these ideas on yourself or your home or as a design project in your community? I'm sure you have ideas already. I'm sure you have things that you're already engaged in. So let's use the second half of the PDC to help you visualize those and for you to start to come together with your own design ideas. And I think that's going to be super interesting for all of us to see, and what comes out from that. And then also though we can be clear about what it is. I want to know if we can share our objectives and we can build a plan, and then perhaps we can communicate that objective out to the wider world. And that's how you win resources. That's how you win support. That's how you win investment. Every week I get dozens of people saying, "Oh, can I just give them a bit of money for seeds or for this or for that?" And the answer is, no, I can't. I'm not able to. But maybe as a group, if we can identify what we need sort of collectively and to create a vision, the kind of vision that has, made our project successful with Arkleton, or what made us successful in Cwmharry, in Newtown, was we had a clear objective. We made people understand how both we and they and the wider world will benefit from that objective, and communicated it in a way in which we won support for our vision. We won support for that. So that's how we win resources. I don't have you know, if I wish there was an easier way or a better way. I don't have anything better to offer than that. But I think that if we follow this design process, this actually becomes our consensus tool. If you include people in your designing and planning, they then have ownership of that project. They feel part of it. They understand where it fits in. Why are we working on Deborah's garden? I'm not going to benefit from that. But now I go, oh, we work on Deborah's garden today and on my garden tomorrow and then your garden the next day. Now I understand. That's a design process that's inclusive and it involves communication and make people understand that ultimately we can all kind of participate and benefit. So I'm going to show one more thing which I have put on the web page, and it's a client checklist. This is a document that was created by Angie Polkey, who's another Welsh permaculture colleague of ours, who I know that Gerald knows. And it's good to mention sometimes these names, but to realize is you just see me here sat in a room by myself, but there's a strong network of permaculture people here in Wales, and we've supported each other and known each other for many years. And that's what you're building in Uganda now. So these are tools which just help us think through this in a methodical way. It's not about right or wrong. No one's going to mark your work and give you a score out of 10. But what I'm trying to do is give you really simple but powerful tools, allow people to come together, make long-term decisions based on ethics that then help the whole community benefit. So our client checklist, that is, who are the beneficiaries of our design? Why are we doing this? And who is it for? So what's our vision? So at Cum Harry, we had a vision to create a horticulture and permaculture demonstration and centre that was also highly productive, that was met the needs of the school and also of vulnerable people. That was our vision. Think about your vision can be really narrow, it can be very specific, but you need to be able to identify and communicate it. What are the wants or functions? What is it that you want to get out of this? E.g., produce, aesthetics, that means how it looks, wildlife, play, relaxation, education, structures, access, animals, plants. If I just say, well, I want a garden, can you design me a garden? What information am I giving you? Nothing. As a designer, you need to ask the question to the client, well, what kind of garden do you want, Steve? What's the purpose of your garden? Oh, it just has to look nice. Oh, okay, it needs to look nice. Oh, well, I've got 6 young children. Oh, you didn't tell me that. So now it's got to be child-proof. See what I mean? As a designer, you need to pull out this information and think about and understand. Yeah, we want produce, and it's got to look good, and it's got to be child-friendly. Okay, let's balance that. How important is the produce? How important is the look? The more information you have, the more that will shape and inform your design. So what's the current situation and limiting factors? And one way of looking at it is, well, why haven't you got one already? What's holding you back from achieving your goal? Why do you even need me as a designer? So we need to understand that as well. So you've got to sort of, it's all very well saying, well, I want a beautiful, functioning, nature-friendly, child-proof garden. Well, why not? Oh, well, I haven't got any land, and I don't know. Getting back to this client question, we need to understand the client or the client group a little bit better. What are their values? If they're Muslim, you can't be telling them to have pigs, or I don't know. Maybe that's the more you can understand about the values, the motivations, the priorities of the people, the more then that your design can be appropriate and relevant to their needs and their resources. What skills and equipment do they have? You might find that your client is hugely knowledgeable, and that's something which you want to access. You could use that as a strength. Oh, they've got tools, or they don't. Availability, time and energy. What's the time scale? Is this a 3-month job or a 3-year job? Do you own the land? Are the legal considerations? What do we need to know? Chance for anything else? Other considerations? And finance and resources, completion date. Look, it's a brainstorm. It's a framework. So the idea, of course, is you can extend this, you make your own notes. But look how every time what we showed you in the SADIMET, survey, analysis, design, implementation, evaluation and tweaking, there's steps, step by step. And that whole step by step starts with the survey of what? The client. Who's the client? Well, it might be you. It might be you and your family. It might be you, your family, your neighbors. It might be your workplace. But define it and be clear, and then communicate with those clients. What's the vision? What are because you might say, I want a beautiful garden and I want everyone to be happy and everything is okay. Yeah, but what functions must that garden do? Let's drill down, get that detail, break it down. So I'm showing you the tools of the trade. These are now your beginnings of your design tools. I said permaculture is 3 things. It's ethics, it's principles, it's design tools. We've had a good go at the ethics. We're at principle 6. So now I'm bringing in to give us some of our design tools. And our first design tool is thinking about SADIMET as a process, and realize that it starts off by surveying the client, the person or people, before we start thinking about the land, before we start thinking about anything else. It's a step-by-step process. Okay. If we just have a moment, what I will do is I'll just take us to our web page.
Steve,
Yeah.
What I've been emphasizing to the team is not to think of systems as complex. Simplify them to the very basic unit and probably work upwards into that. Actually, even within a single system, you can have subsystems and build onto that.
Very much so. Can you see that now? So this is today's page, PDC23-12, everything cycles. So there's a very simple system, isn't it, Gerald? I've got my fish tank, I've got my gravel bed with my plants, and so there's a relationship between the nitrates coming out of the fish tank, feeding the plants, and returning clean water back to the fish again. As designers, if we just look at individual elements, we need to study the fish tank, we need to study the pump, we need to study the reed bed, but we also need to understand that they have a relationship with each other as a system, a meta system. Now, and what you just said, Gerald, is we could also just look at an element of that system, like the reed bed, and realize the reed bed, oh, that's a complex thing in itself. So this is a system. So it's what we can see worlds within worlds, but we need to understand the relationship between those elements. That's what we're trying to get into now, to thinking about designing systems that eliminate waste. That's what we're doing. We're designing systems that use the existing available resources. So there's our spider diagram, which you can explore, and which I think you did. And there's links to the client checklist, the SADIMET presentation that I showed you, and there's my community garden story if you want to have a look at that. And so I'll place the video. I put a couple more resources that I wanted to that was current. Tesfahun had posted a lovely little short YouTube video of their first day at the Syntropic Agroforestry event in Lalibela in Ethiopia, and he's super excited to be there. He's very much following this PDC, and so I just wanted to share that with you. And do check it out, and do follow Tesfahun on YouTube. I found a really fascinating article on biochar. Terra preta, meaning the black earth made with biochar soils, by someone called Austin Liu. You can click on there and access the article. It's on a platform called Medium. It's free, but you have to log in. I've copy and pasted just the conclusions. They're kind of and very, very interesting. So they're getting deep on the science of biochar and understanding on a much more deeper way just exactly how it works and so forth. But the take homes are, we need to be experimenting with this more. And they talk about co-composting your biochar. So don't make the compost and then add the biochar after, but compost the biochar, build the compost, co-compost the biochar together with, and look, this is your Sakuma Wiki. Here's your collard greens. That's the plain compost. That's with the biochar. That's, again, another brassica, another cabbage family. That's the plain compost. This is with the composted biochar. And again, we're looking at pumpkins here as well. Fantastic results. And I've just put a link in. I haven't put anything more yet, but to Ali Tebendeki's site, the Permaculture Initiative Uganda at Butambala. And he's offering a PDC I see coming up as well. And get in touch with him. He's a really cool guy. He's a really good teacher, and he's very much part of our network. And I'm trying to use this PDC and the Academy as a tool to bring you guys together. So you feel like, it doesn't matter where you are, whether in Kenya, you're in Uganda, you're in Rwanda, you're in Malawi, I don't mind where you are, you're in Wales, you're in Ireland. We're all doing this together, and we're all trying to share what we learn and support each other. And there we go. So, and I've said this before, but there's a page obviously for each week, and I find it a good way for myself to remember what I've taught. And also, these resources are here for you. If you want to download them, have them on your phone, pick and choose one or two, have the whole course. I want to get this knowledge out there, and I want to share it. And I'm encouraged so encouraged by the feedback we've had from the project and our evaluation from the project. And we're going to keep doing it. And permaculture runs on feedback. Permaculture runs on testing out assumptions by engaging with people. And that's, again, what we're doing on our PDC. And we want to get your feedback. And that's why we're inviting you to the design challenge. And that's very much a part of completing the course and getting your certificate. And it's not a test. There's no winners or losers. There's no right or wrong. It's about you having the experience of going through that. And we'll introduce each step by step in the coming weeks. And I wanted to set that up this week so you know that's where we're coming, and we're going to give you the tools to design, set in motion your own project, and then we'll use our collective platform to put a message out to the world and hopefully inspire people with what we're doing, our vision, what we're achieving, and hopefully that might help also win us resources and new friends and help build new relationships, which is exactly what permaculture is all about. I'm just seeing your message. We're about to lose you, Stella. Anyway, okay. Any comments before we have a few minutes? I'd love to hear from anyone.
Simon, Deborah, any feedback? Sorry to put you on the spot, but we enjoy those, you know, feedback and then questions and additions. Okay, so I think to at that point, then it's been really an interesting session. Always, you know, it's always a top up. It's always more, it gets even more and more interesting. And as you deeper now start to do the consolidation. But then, as I always say, remember, most of these principles, if anything, they end up feeding up or creating that linkage. You have sort of a web, they link up to, at each and every point, they will keep linking up. Back to you, Steve, and I think we'll call it a day for today.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And with all of your contacts, I'm just seeing your message, Stella. Yeah, just pass on these messages and make people understand now that the second half of the course now, we're going to be turning these theories into actions, into designs, and we're going to send a real powerful message out in that process. So thank you again, everybody, and I will look forward to seeing you all again next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow, not next week.